So that leads us to Sophie Cunningham, and it's getting ugly already out there. There was a couple of ugly fouls, and the retards, as I like to call them, the RAHTARDS's.
Enter Sophie Cunningham. She was the lead scorer of the entire game for both teams, coming away with 21 points and 8 rebounds.
It is exactly what you want to see. Because the Fever, if you're looking at the box scores, like DeWanna Bonner is 0 of 4 from the field. You're looking at an 0 of 10 for Kelsey Mitchell.
Oh my God. Sophie's a dog. She just is, she's a competitor. She's versatile, so she allows us to do different things. Like, she plays with such a toughness. She's huge, and she's going to be for us all season long. But what she brings from an energy standpoint, she raises the level of play of everybody around her as soon as she steps foot on the floor. Hell, even on the sideline. I mean, her communication, everything. She's definitely an X factor.
When does the relentless burning desire to win on the professional court cross an invisible yet critical line into something far more troubling, something that feels less like sport and more like a targeted campaign? The WNBA, a league bursting with escalating talent and celebrated for its fierce, unapologetic competition, occasionally finds itself at the center of explosive confrontations, moments that compel fans, analysts, and even casual observers to ask profoundly difficult questions about the nature of the game itself. We're about to delve deep into one such contest, a game where one player's shocking ordeal under duress and her subsequent awe-inspiring resilience didn't just flip the script on the court, but also ignited a firestorm of controversy that continues to smolder, a debate about the very heart and soul of professional women's basketball.
They are already now attacking Sophie Cunningham. Oh, they're mad. The MAGA Barbies got them angry. They're cheering on violence against this basketball player.
The Indiana Fever stepped onto the hardwood for this particular matchup with a palpable void in their lineup. The electric energy and headline-grabbing presence of their star rookie Caitlin Clark was notably absent. Without their new cornerstone, the team initially seemed adrift in a sea of uncertainty. Their early play was marked by a surprising passivity, a visible and concerning lack of the usual fire, cohesive movement, and pressing urgency one expects at this elite level. They looked disjointed, almost as if the weight of expectation or perhaps the absence of their key playmaker had left them momentarily indifferent to the game's unfolding narrative. This apparent disarray, this momentary vulnerability, unfortunately, may have been perceived by their opponents, the Washington Mystics, as an open invitation, setting a precarious and ominous stage for the aggressive tactics that were about to be unleashed.
Shot too strong there from Olsen. Cunningham pulls down, and here's that feistiness.
There you go.
She is fierce in the game, and I know it wasn't announced that Caitlin Clark wouldn't play until right before, but this is a preseason.
It is so evident when Caitlin Clark is not on the court for the Indiana Fever. She is such a floor general. She is the X factor for the Indiana Fever. She leads the way when they don't have her.
What began as a standard WNBA contest soon took a sharp, unsettling turn. The game's atmosphere shifted dramatically, becoming charged with an aggressive undercurrent as the Mystics began to employ an overtly physical strategy. Veteran guard Sophie Cunningham, known for her sharpshooting and tenacious play, found herself inexplicably at the epicenter of this escalating physicality. The pressure was not just consistent, it felt targeted. Every time she cut towards the basket, a Mystics defender was there, not just to impede her progress, but to deliver a jarring bump. Every screen she attempted to set was met with an opponent running through her with excessive force, often sending her sprawling. Even off-ball movements were met with impactful body checks that seemed to stretch the definition of legal defense. The aggression was relentless, a constant barrage that went far beyond typical defensive intensity, painting a clear picture of a player being systematically worn down. Compounding the visible aggression on the court was a growing sense of frustration and disbelief due to the perceived inaction from the officiating crew. Through much of this initial onslaught, the referee's whistles remained conspicuously silent. Plays that on any other night might have drawn immediate fouls were seemingly ignored, allowing the aggressive tenor of the game to not only continue but to escalate dangerously. It became increasingly apparent that Cunningham was not just facing tough defense, she was enduring a calculated campaign of physical intimidation.
And that's Kiki Arafin, and I got to tell you, here we go with the smiling like you've done. I don't get it. This is the worst part of the WNBA. It is. A ton of reaction. The smiles afterward, let's get negative. These people are loving this. It's crazy.
That breaking point arrived in a moment that would become the game's defining image, a flashpoint that instantly ignited a firestorm of debate. Mystics rookie Kiki Rice, in a highly controversial play, forcefully pulled Sophie Cunningham down to the hardwood. It wasn't a subtle trip or an accidental collision, it was a clear two-handed drag that sent Cunningham crashing to the floor with significant impact. The visual was jarring, a blatant act that many observers felt was far outside the acceptable bounds of competitive basketball, but what happened next poured gasoline on the already simmering outrage. As Cunningham lay on the court, Rice was seen by many with what appeared to be a smile or a smirk. This alleged reaction, whether intentional or misinterpreted, was perceived as a shocking display of unsportsmanlike conduct, transforming a heated moment into a deeply personal affront. Sophie, however, refused to be a victim. In an incredible display of resilience and defiance, she sprang to her feet, not to retaliate with aggression, but to directly and vocally confront Rice. This wasn't merely a personal act of standing up for herself. It was a powerful, unyielding statement to the Mystics, to the officials, and to her own team. The Indiana Fever would not be pushed around, would not be intimidated, and would not back down.
I guess we're going to have wars again. I mean, seriously. This league is it's really crazy. It really is crazy.
The raw, unfiltered emotion of that confrontation acted as an immediate and undeniable catalyst, completely transforming the Indiana Fever's on-court persona. It was as if a switch had been flipped. The team that had appeared passive and disjointed just moments before was suddenly reborn, morphing into a tenacious, aggressive unit playing with a palpable fire in their eyes. This metamorphosis was not just attitudinal, it was tactical. The Fever immediately implemented a relentless full-court press, a suffocating defensive strategy that hounded the Mystics' ball handlers, forced a flurry of turnovers, and visibly disrupted their offensive rhythm. The Mystics, who had been dictating the game's physical terms, suddenly found themselves rattled and on the defensive. Sophie Cunningham, far from being cowed by the rough treatment, channeled her adrenaline into her performance. Her subsequent plays became symbolic acts of defiance. Each crucial three-pointer she drained, each hard drive to the basket, wasn't just points on the board. It was a rallying cry, a defiant roar that electrified her teammates and seemed to ignite the entire arena. This surge of energy was contagious. Other Fever players, notably veteran Dana Bonner, visibly elevated their intensity, engaging in their own chippy exchanges and stepping up to support Cunningham. A newfound solidarity emerged, a powerful cohesion forged in the heat of adversity, all sparked by Sophie's courageous stand.
Little standing on business. I mean, it's wild. It really is.
Looks like she's moving the ball to Sophie, kicks it to Kelsey, who kicks it back out to Sophie for the jumper.
As the game progressed, the conversation surrounding the extreme physicality, particularly against Cunningham, began to escalate far beyond the immediate confines of the arena. The central question loomed large and troubling. Was this merely hard-nosed WNBA basketball, a display of the grit and toughness the league often prides itself on? Or had the actions, particularly those by the Mystics, crossed a dangerous and unacceptable line into something far more sinister, something that felt less like competition and more akin to a targeted assault? The evidence fueling this debate was mounting. The series of flagrant fouls eventually called against the Mystics, many for contact against Cunningham, lent credence to the narrative that she was being deliberately and excessively targeted. These weren't minor infractions, they were plays involving unnecessary and often dangerous contact, such as the deliberate trip that sent her crashing without any play on the ball, or the repeated instances of excessive force that seemed designed to intimidate or injure rather than to legitimately defend. This led to widespread speculation about the underlying motives. Why Sophie Cunningham? Why the Indiana Fever? Theories abounded. Perhaps it was resentment over the significant media spotlight suddenly shining on the Fever. Maybe it was a form of professional jealousy or a misguided attempt to send a message to a team perceived as an up-and-coming threat.
Is running a commercial right now, an ad, talking about the physicality in the league. And again, I've watched physical basketball. It's kind of weird for a league to just I don't know, to wrap your loving arms around it and then promote it. All right, that's one way to go, I guess.
The WNBA itself has a complicated and at times seemingly contradictory stance on the issue of physicality. On one hand, the league actively promotes its toughness, often featuring aggressive defensive plays and intense player confrontations in its advertising campaigns. These promotions aim to showcase the grit, passion, and fierce competitiveness of its athletes. However, this celebration of physicality can enter murky waters when incidents like the one involving Sophie Cunningham occur. Critics argue that by romanticizing intense physicality without a strong concurrent emphasis on player safety and sportsmanship, the league might inadvertently send a dangerous message. Does this promotional stance tacitly condone or even encourage overly aggressive tactics that blur the line between tough play and reckless endangerment? It's a question that casts a shadow over the league's responsibility to protect its athletes. Furthermore, the role of referees in such situations comes under intense scrutiny. In this particular game, their initial leniency was seen by many as a contributing factor, allowing the situation to spiral out of control before they began to consistently call flagrant fouls. By the time stricter officiating was implemented, significant physical punishment had already been absorbed, raising concerns about whether officials are always equipped to proactively manage game intensity.
I like seeing teams playing feisty. I like seeing teams going out there and looking like they want to win. And the Fever did not look like they wanted to win to start off this game. They straight up did not. And I really like the fact that they 100%, everything changed. Everything changed when Sophie Cunningham got into it with Kiki Riafen.
Against this backdrop of intense physical harassment and brewing controversy, Sophie Cunningham delivered a performance that was nothing short of monumental. Her stat line alone, a team-leading 21 points and 8 crucial rebounds, was impressive. But when contextualized by the relentless targeted aggression she endured throughout the game, those numbers transform from merely impressive to truly extraordinary. It takes a rare kind of mental steel and almost preternatural focus to not only continue playing under such duress, but to excel, to rise above the provocation and the pain, and to deliver a game-changing performance. Cunningham didn't just absorb the punishment, she seemed to metabolize it, turning the Mystics' aggression into fuel for her own competitive fire. Each shove, each hard foul appeared only to strengthen her resolve. In the conspicuous absence of her star teammate, Sophie stepped decisively into the leadership vacuum. She became the primary offensive threat, the go-to scorer her team desperately needed. Her shooting was remarkably efficient, her decision-making composed and intelligent, even amidst the chaos. She was not just a scorer, she was an on-court general, directing traffic, making smart passes, and battling for every loose ball. This was a veteran athlete demonstrating the profound depths of her character.
And you want to know one thing that I really like? The way the Fever were reacting to situations was almost like the Mercury from last year. It was almost like the Mercury from last year. And if you guys know anything about the Mercury were tough, they were gritty. They were so hard to play against.
You go in and ball out against these chicks in the WNBA, they get mad and they get their feelings hurt. They get butt hurt. And so instead of turning to basketball and defense, we'll turn to violence.
The transformation wasn't limited to Sophie's individual brilliance, it sent palpable ripples throughout the entire Indiana Fever roster. Players like Dana Bonner, as mentioned, visibly intensified their game, but the shift was broader, almost systemic. Teammates who might have previously deferred in challenging moments now displayed a new assertiveness, a clear willingness to engage both physically and vocally, matching fire with fire. This single game may have inadvertently answered lingering questions about the Fever's overall toughness. Previously, without a consistently recognized enforcer figure on the court, they might have been perceived by some opponents as a team that could be outmuscled or intimidated. This incident, however, seemed to awaken a collective, unshakable grit. The shared experience of facing down such overt aggression, of standing shoulder to shoulder in defiance and ultimately emerging victorious, can forge an incredibly strong and resilient bond, a siege mentality where the team feels profoundly united against any external pressures. This wasn't just another win in the standings, it was a powerful statement of intent, a declaration of their newfound identity. This enforcer mentality, born from sheer necessity in the heat of battle, presents a stark contrast to how the team might have been perceived earlier, suggesting a significant and perhaps permanent evolution in their collective character and on-court demeanor. But this internal shift, as positive as it was for the Fever, also casts a brighter light on the environment that necessitated it.
But we can say this. I told you guys, Sophie Cunningham was going to be something for this team. She showed it today, and it's amazing. You go in and ball out against these chicks in the WNBA, they get mad and they get their feelings hurt. They get butt hurt. And so instead of turning to basketball and defense, we'll turn to violence. I can't say I'm shocked. After last season, I can't say I'm shocked. So now the Indiana Fever officially have two players in the crosshairs of these chicks in the league.
While the Fever may have discovered a new, resilient strength within themselves, the aftermath of this highly charged game left the WNBA grappling with uncomfortable truths and pressing concerns about its future direction and the well-being of its athletes. Was the intense, sustained focus on Cunningham an isolated opponent-specific strategy, or does it hint at a potentially growing and perhaps tacitly permissible tactic against high-profile players or teams currently capturing significant media attention? If the latter proves true, what does this ominous trend mean for the league's brightest stars and their fundamental right to a safe competitive environment? The long-term fallout is a deeply serious consideration. If games frequently devolve into such overtly physical battles, where aggression overshadows the incredible skill and athleticism on display, does the league risk alienating a segment of fans who crave artistry over attrition? More critically, the cumulative physical toll on players subjected to such relentless tactics could lead to an increase in injuries and potentially shortened careers. The WNBA now faces a delicate, high-stakes balancing act. How to preserve and effectively promote the exciting, high-energy, undeniably physical brand of basketball its fans have come to love, while simultaneously ensuring that player safety isn't compromised and that the often blurry line into unsportsmanlike conduct is clearly defined and rigorously enforced. This single, highly publicized game, with all its drama and controversy, could very well serve as a crucial inflection point. Will it prompt clearer directives from the league office on what constitutes excessive force, lead to more consistent and proactive officiating, or even result in stricter penalties for actions deemed to be deliberately injurious or overly intimidatory? The league's response, or indeed its silence, will speak volumes in the coming weeks and months.
But no doubt about it, the Indiana Fever have another star. All right? Just this quick. Sophie Cunningham, and I told you guys I had a feeling that she was going to really make her presence known.
Ultimately, Sophie Cunningham's defiant stand and her stellar gutsy performance achieved far more than just securing a remarkable comeback victory for the Indiana Fever. It felt like the birth of something new, the forging of a grittier, more resilient, and fiercely united identity for a team in transition. In that single, emotionally charged game, Cunningham shattered any lingering perception that she might be merely a complimentary player. She proved unequivocally that she is a cornerstone, a leader capable of shouldering immense responsibility, embodying the potent combination of fight, skill, and composure that defines true winners in professional sports. However, the echoes of this intense confrontation linger, posing a compelling and urgent challenge for the WNBA as a whole. As the league continues its impressive trajectory of growth, attracting more fans and greater visibility, it faces the critical task of navigating the delicate, often precarious balance between celebrating the inherent toughness of its athletes and unequivocally protecting them from actions that cross the line into dangerous territory. What precedent does an incident like this set for the future of physicality in the league? It's a question that demands thoughtful consideration, because the soul of the game and the well-being of its stars hangs in the balance.